So hi everybody, I'm Sally, and along with the rest of the team, we're delighted to present our app, Daisy. So, along with me today, we've got Anas, Matt, Emma, and Paul. So Daisy is actually a chatbot who delivers AI-powered suggestions from Yelp. So not just a pretty name. So we've all, whether we're on holiday or we're on a business trip, we've all found ourselves in unfamiliar cities, in need of suggestions of where to have dinner or maybe get a beer. And that's where Daisy comes in. So whether you're looking for a beer in Berlin or a burger in Barcelona, Daisy will be there to help. So we are aware that there's quite a lot of different apps that, or sources of information, I should say, sources of information where you can get recommendations about restaurants or bars, such as TripAdvisor. However, we did find that these kind of websites can be a little bit static. If you are abroad, you would have to download an app in order to access that information. Also, sometimes there's a little bit too much choice there as well. Also, obviously, there's quite a lot of voice-powered technology, such as Alexa and Siri. However, when we tested it out, we actually found Siri to be not particularly accurate, because, for example, when we asked for recommendations for cocktails in Sheffield, we actually got a recommendation of a working men's club in Wadsley. Also, with Siri, it's, with all this voice-powered technology, it doesn't actually understand certain accents. So, for example, Siri has no hope of understanding Emma. So what we thought was that wouldn't it be nice to have an intelligent chatbot that lives in an app that you already have on your phone, that you can have a natural conversation with in order to get these kind of restaurant and bar recommendations. And also we thought, it's 2018, who wants to be going to a website? We want to be chatting to a bot. So I will pass you on to Naz, who will go through a live demo of what Daisy can do.
Hi guys, so I'm going to give you a live demo. I'm just going to kind of walk you through what's happening on the screen, and Sally's going to be speaking to Daisy live. Okay, so this is Daisy. We're going to be speaking to her on the Facebook Messenger platform. We can just start by saying, "Hi Daisy," and she'll return back a greeting with the user's name, which she obtains from the API of whatever platform we are speaking to Daisy in. So being a new user, we want to know what Daisy is capable of, so we can say help. She'll kind of give a brief example of what she's capable of and some example prompts that the user can send through. So for example, if we start really basically and say, I want pizza in Manchester, we can send that off. And Daisy will have a little think and send back to the user 5 restaurant recommendations specific to the user's request. Okay, so here we have 5 lovely cards that the user can just swipe through and have a glance at. Each card has detailed information such as the restaurant's name, the location, the price point, and how they're rated. If the user wants any more information, they can click View Website and be taken straight to the restaurant's Yelp page, which is handy. Alternatively, if they want to contact the restaurant directly, they can click Call to Book and hit Call if they want to make further inquiries. Assuming the user isn't happy with those 5 restaurant recommendations, they can click More, and Daisy will send off 5 further recommendations as per the user's original request. So that's quite handy. On top of that, so we just gave you an example of it working locally. The user can also make inquiries for international restaurant recommendations. So for example, Tapas in Palencia, I think it's a place in Malaga or something, Mallorca. It works perfectly well locally and for international destinations. So if you're planning a holiday abroad, it'd be really useful for that. On top of that, these have been quite basic inquiries. We can make it even more basic by not even specifying a location that we want to get recommendations for. So if we say, can you recommend a vegan restaurant for Mitch with no location, Daisy will prompts you to either specify a location or send your location. Okay, so when we do that and Daisy obtains our location, she'll send cards that have a bit more information on. So we see a little walking man that has the estimated distance from your current location to each individual restaurant, which we think is quite handy. And last but not least, you can get directions too, but last but not least, these have been quite simple dialogues, but the user can really make it as complicated as they want. So you could say something as complex as Matt proper fancies a cheap beer in Stockport after this, okay? And Daisy will correctly pull out the keywords from this phrase, like cheap beer, Stockport, and provide you like relevant recommendations. So that's basically it in a nutshell. We're really happy with it. I hope you've enjoyed that kind of brief demo. I'm going to pass you over to Paul now, who is going to tell you a bit more about the brains behind the bot. So.
Okay, thank you, Anas. Yes, I'm going to tell you a little bit about how Daisy is actually working, kind of under the hood. All the code for this is written in JavaScript because that is a language that we've been learning while I've been here at Northcoders for the last 3 months. However, all the Microsoft stuff that we've used and all the kind of the chatbot stuff is completely new. We've never worked on this kind of thing before, so we had like free reign to pick whatever technology stack we wanted to use. So, as I just said, we ended up choosing to use the Microsoft kind of cloud platform. So this consisted of Microsoft Azure, which a lot of you will have heard of, kind of web hosting and things, Microsoft's own bot framework, which we use as our core kind of chatbot platform, and we linked this up with another Microsoft cloud product, which is called Lewis, which is their natural language processing platform. The reason why we chose to use the Microsoft stack was that at the very beginning of the project, we kind of split 2 ways between 2 different options. There was the Microsoft version, and then there was Google's Dialogflow. So we kind of split off, we paired up, we just like spent a day trying to get kind of something really basic up and running. And we basically found while we were doing that with Microsoft, there was more options in terms of the platforms you could deploy it onto. There was more kind of flexibility in terms of the customization of the bot and how it would look and act. And basically just the day that we spent doing that, we found we were able to get up and running far more quickly with the Microsoft products. So that was why we chose that in the end. I'm going to spend a minute telling you sort of briefly how the natural language processing works in the background. So you've seen the demo, and then the kind of magic in the background, how that works is if you send a query to Daisy, such as this one, show me cheap Italian restaurants in Leeds, we've trained our Lewis machine learning model to recognize an intent in these kind of messages, which we've called a find business intent. So this means that whether you are searching for restaurants, cafes, pubs, or bars, they are all businesses, and it will pick that out with a find business intent. In addition to that, we further train the model to recognize certain entities. So in this example here, the entities that are being identified are the words cheap, Italian, restaurants, and Leeds. And so in the background, it kind of looks a little bit like this. It effectively ends up as show me cost cuisine business in location. So that means that whether you drop in kind of a restaurant into this business or whether it's a cafe, it will kind of understand it in the same way of trying to look for a certain business. You can substitute things like, so if you're looking for a coffee, you can say, where can I go for a flat white in Huddersfield? It will recognise that a flat white is a cafe drink, hence you're looking for a cafe, and it will search for that as the category. You saw the very last example in the demo was about looking for a cheap pint somewhere. So the cost thing is like a kind of optional parameter. You can give various synonyms for either cheap or expensive. And basically part of the Yelp search parameters is you can specify kind of what price level of place you're looking for. So you can search for a cheap pint or a swanky restaurant somewhere, and Daisy can understand that. Once we've got all the parameters that we need from the user, and the minimum is a location and a category to look for, we then fire off a API call to the Yelp search API, and that's where we get all our businesses back from. And then in terms of actually displaying that back to the user, our kind of idea for an MVP was we wanted to have this hosted in Facebook Messenger as a kind of a minimum, basically. And we kind of got to that point, I guess, not as a finished product, but kind of as a kind of first go after maybe about a week. So we've had 2 weeks to work on this. So end of first week, we had it kind of up and running on Messenger. We thought kind of why stop there? Like we can do like so much more than this. We can get it onto Slack, which we've done. We thought it'd be really nice for, you know, if you were working in an office where your colleagues and you are wanting to go somewhere for lunch and you want to have like more like a joint conversation with a Daisy bot, like where can we go for lunch today? And further to that, we thought, well, if you don't have Facebook on your phone and like not that many people, I guess, use Slack, we could really do having a React Native app so that like all users of smartphones, regardless of Facebook or Slack, can have the power of Daisy in their pockets. This did lead to some issues with the cross-platform user experience. And I'm going to pass you on to Matt, who's going to tell you a little bit more about that. So.
Cheers, mate. Thank you. Hello, everybody. So Microsoft's own bot framework came with an emulator that we could install locally, and we could work on Daisy without deploying it to any of the platforms that we wanted to. We decided quite early on that we wanted to display the results in a kind of a card format, maybe with an image. Excuse me, maybe with an image. So we looked into it, and it seemed quite natural that to use Microsoft's own adaptive card display method, which said that they were adaptable to any platform. So we worked for a few days getting them looking how we wanted locally in the emulator. And then it took a few more days to get them in a carousel, nice flowing carousel. However, when we went to deploy these on, when we went to deploy them onto Facebook Messenger, they just didn't work. It was the whole card, display card, rendered as a whole image. So the buttons were there, but they were not clickable. It was a part of a whole image. So we looked into Facebook's own display method, and it was quite similar in the way it worked. So once we had rendered it, once we've rendered it properly, it looks like it belonged in Facebook. It looks like something you'd expect in a Facebook message. So once we'd done that, we tried to use the adaptive cards in Slack, but they looked even worse in Slack. These adaptive cards weren't very adaptable, to be honest. So we looked into Slack's own message display method, which was quite restrictive. As in the images, we could do nothing with them. They were either really big and didn't really look good at all, or they were like a thumbnail image and it just didn't work. So we removed them totally from the display, but I don't think it turned out too bad. It's got everything wanted on there, bar an image. But by far and away, the biggest headache we had was React Native. So I'll pass you over to Emma, who will explain more. Thank you.
Thank you. So initially, React Native was actually really positive. Early on, the app was actually talking to Daisy through Microsoft's Direct Line API, and we were getting responses. And using Gifted Chats library, we were rendering this pretty good user interface with text bubbles, and everything looked the way it should, except that the cards were actually not appearing. All that we were getting back was an empty message and a timestamp. After a lot of digging around, we discovered that there is no current support for adaptive cards with React Native. It's in progress at the moment, but it's just not there. So through a lot of trial and error, we had to build the cards ourselves from the ground up, and it really was probably one of the most difficult things that I had to do with this. And with Sally's help, we finally got there, really only yesterday. What we've ended up with is something between the Facebook cards and the Slack cards. And at the moment, you can only get one result at a time. So rather than the 5 results that you can get in the other 2 platforms, you're just getting a single result. You can use the more command to get the next one through. But I do think that if we had more time with it, we could definitely render a carousel. It would definitely be up there and pretty close to what we have in Facebook. But it was just the challenges with React Native being fairly new, working with the adaptive cards. It's just going to need some time and a lot of trial and error. I'm going to hand you over now to Sally, who's going to talk about how we worked as a team.
Yep, so despite all of these challenges, we did work really well together as a team. Trusty whiteboard with our day's tasks on it. And so during our stand-ups, we would all make sure that we were in agreement of what everybody was doing and to make sure everybody felt quite happy and comfortable doing those tasks. And really throughout the day, we would always communicate really effectively. So if anyone's done anything that we're really proud of, or we've been struggling with something and we've finally achieved it, we would all sort of gather around and see it. And similarly, if anyone was struggling with anything, we all sort of chipped in and tried to help out. So I'll tell you a little bit more about what we'd like to do if we had more time.
Thanks, Sal. So yeah, I mean, there's really like so much potential to expand this, and I think all the groups that have done these projects throughout the years of Northcoders, there's kind of so much more. There's always more you could do with them. One of the things that we talked about when we were first discussing what we'd like to do with the app was to make something that could essentially kind of book your entire night out, or kind of sort out like a date night or something. So to be able to handle multiple intents, essentially, at the moment, we're kind of giving it a single thing that we're looking for. But if you wanted to plan a night out where you're going to go to a pizza restaurant and then go for cocktails afterwards, it'd be nice if it could kind of pick out these as being two separate things, and then perhaps if once you've selected a restaurant of interest, then maybe it can go on to find a bar that's actually kind of located close to that restaurant, so it's somewhere nearby. On a kind of related theme, there are other APIs that would be nice to tap into. So there's something called Open Table, where you can actually book directly a restaurant table. So it'd be kind of a natural fit to get Daisy to firstly suggest a restaurant and then have the ability to book it directly from inside Facebook Messenger. Again, to kind of complete this sort of date night kind of example, like maybe you want to go to the cinema or go bowling or something. So you could probably quite easily imagine yourselves having seen those cards flicking by with restaurants, like imagine those with films and like kind of film posters in and the times of the cinema and that kind of thing. So that'd be quite a nice feature to have. But even broader than that, I mean, if you can say to it, kind of find me a cheap pint, then you can say, find me a cheap flight to Malaga this weekend, or like find me a cheap hotel once we get there, something like that. So there's so much you could do with this. And finally, it'd be really nice to be able to get kind of like more improved recommendations over time. So, you know, if we could store kind of some user preferences or some like user search data, and actually kind of build more kind of complex models that would be able in future to be able to kind of recommend suggestions that are more tailored, more personalised to individual users, then that would be ideal. And Sally's going to wrap up for us.
So on behalf of the team, I'd like to say a big thank you to everybody for coming and listening about our app. So we hope you enjoyed learning about it as much as we did developing it. And finally, I'd like to say a big thank you to Northcoders for teaching us everything we know about code. Thank you.